love for you to give a warm welcome to our guest speaker tonight. This is Colette.
Wow, that sounds loud. I guess you can hear me now. Thank you for the warm welcome. I am so excited to be here. This is my home church, so I'm super excited to get to talk to you all tonight. And I am a volunteer leader with Traffic 911. Traffic 911 is an organization. Our mission is to rescue kids, free kids from sexual slavery here in Texas. And so I brought some friends of mine that are going to help facilitate the small groups afterwards. So I'm just going to introduce them to you. Anthony, raise your hand. Liz, Michelle, and Leslie. And we're all volunteers with the organization. So we don't get paid. We just come to talk to you all because we are passionate about this. So Traffic 911, it has a 3-tier approach. Prevention through education and awareness, hence why you all are here today. And rescue, we rescue kids, and we also focus on restoration. We have a safe house that is out in the middle of nowhere, Texas. So it's a safe place where the kids can go to heal. So the title of the presentation is Traps of a Trafficker. And I brought a couple props. So does anybody know, did I tell you that this is actually interactive? So you have to participate, otherwise it'll be really boring. So anybody want to volunteer to come and stick their finger in this for me? I'm just kidding. So who knows what this is? It's a mouse trap. Yeah, all right, so hold that thought for a minute. How many of you have heard of, is it okay if I move this? How many of you have heard of sex trafficking? Raise your hand. Sadly, yes. Can anybody tell me what sex trafficking is? Be brave. Yes, sir. No, there's no messing up.
Sex trafficking is the movement and the use of sexual slaves that are forced into slaves.
Exactly. Yeah, so right on, that is absolutely right. So sex trafficking is the buying and selling of a person for sex. And so it's the exchange of a sex act for anything of value, right? And then there are a couple other terms that we'll talk about, so I just want to make sure everybody has the lingo down. So who is the trafficker? Yeah, exactly. So it's the person who is selling. And so you will hear me use the term pimp, trafficker, and perpetrator, and they all mean the same thing. I tend to not like the word pimp because it's become something that's like cool and hip in our culture. And so you'll hear me say trafficker and perpetrator more. And then we have somebody who is the John, and a John can actually be a man or a woman. Well, who's the John? Anybody know? Yeah, so the John is the person that is the buyer. And then we have a recruiter. Anybody know what the recruiter might do? Exactly. You guys are so smart. So the recruiter is somebody that the trafficker will hire. So next slide, please. Okay, who do we see up here? Yes. And so what happens if you see one of these little guys in your house? Somebody say, kill it, kill it. All right, so what kind of trap is this? Oh, here, I want to make sure I don't get my finger stuck. All right, so what happens if this snaps? What happens to the mouse? Right? Yeah, instant death. So if you were going to bait this to entice the mouse to go in there, what kinds of things would you put in? Cheese. Peanut butter, right? Well, Strawberries. So what if I put a diamond ring in there? Do you guys think that the mouse would go for it? That was pretty good. That was a good one. All right. So unless the diamond ring is covered in peanut butter, probably not, right? And so one of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight are the traps that these traffickers set for kids and what kinds of bait they are going to use to lure and trap their victims. Next slide. Okay, so how many of you knew that trafficking happens here in Texas? Raise your hand. Okay, quite a few of you, that's awesome. How many of you knew that it happens in Collin County? Raise your hand. How many of you, so a few less, how many of you knew that it happened right here in Plano? Raise your hand. And even a few less. So yes, some of the stories I'm going to be sharing with you tonight are about what's happening right here in Plano, what's happening in Collin County. So one of the reasons why this is such a crisis is that we have a very short time with which to identify and rescue these kids. And that the kids' average life expectancy is only 7 years from the time they're trafficked. Why do you think that might be? Yeah, did I hear STD? Yeah. So STDs. So yeah, so sexually transmitted diseases, that's huge, can lead to death. What else? Yes, ma'am.
Don't they like drug them?
Yes, so drugs are huge. And I would say that in terms of the number one bait, it absolutely drugs. And we'll talk more about that. Any other? Yes? Yes, so extreme conditions that they are having to, and I'm not even going to use the word work because they're just basically, these kids are being raped multiple times a day, every day over a period of months or years. And so they're not getting proper nutrition, not getting proper medical attention. So that is why the life expectancy is so low. Also, we have suicide and murder in there, along with drugs and STDs and poor nutrition and medical. So I don't know about you, but this is the statistic that really shocked me, was what's the average age? 12 to 13. Do we have any 12 or 13-year-olds in here? Raise your hand. Yeah. So what grade are you in when you are 12 or 13? 6th to 7th grade, right? So you think how young that is, that these traffickers are looking for kids in middle school and in high school. And why do you think they go for a younger kid? Yeah, somebody said more vulnerable. It might be they're easier to trick, right? Easier to trick. Yeah? So it's the fastest growing crime in the world. Right now it's number 2. It's projected to be number 1. Anybody want to guess what number 1 is? Drugs. Yes, sir. Over here. Very good. So drugs are number 1. So have you guys heard of the companies, the really small companies, Nike, Google, and Starbucks? Right? So the sex trafficking is a $32 billion a year industry. If you took Nike, Starbucks, and Google, the sales of all of those, they do not add up to sex trafficking. So they are projecting that sex trafficking is going to become number 1. So how many times can you sell a drug before it's used up? Once. How many times can you sell a kid? Over and over and over, right? This is probably a low estimate, 100,000 U.S. kids. Sometimes some studies say 300,000. 99% of the kids are never rescued, so the stories you're going to hear tonight are about that 1%. And we are working to change that, to rescue more kids. So I usually tell when I talk, I realize it's Sunday, tomorrow's school, everybody might be a little tired. But if you zone out on me, the one thing I want you to remember is this last stat up there. And that is 1 in 3 kids who either become homeless or run away will be approached by a trafficker in how many hours? 48 hours. Why do you think that is? Right, so you think if you're on the street, you're not getting your basic needs met, food, don't have a place to sleep, don't have money, don't have clothes, right? And so the trafficker swoops in and then starts to make all those promises. Next slide.
Experts estimate 300,000 children are sexually exploited every year. Some are even being sold as sex slaves on the internet. It is a crime against young women that's barely reported. Before she left on maternity leave, Natalie Morales filed this report on one teenager's harrowing story, a warning it is very tough to watch.
It's a story that begins in small-town USA with the girl next door.
I always figured that something like that could never happen to me because I was safe. I was always careful.
At 16, Shauna Newell had heard the stories of the thousands of young foreign women being tricked into modern-day sexual slavery.
I always thought that stuff like that only happened to people who were like putting themselves in that position, in that predicament, you know, like girls who were floozies and girls who just took life for granted, and I wasn't that kind of person, you know. I dressed respectably, I never showed my body off ever.
But this Florida teenager's life took a terrifying turn when she was trafficked by the most unlikely criminal, a fellow 16-year-old girl.
She was a really good friend.
Shauna says that girl, a 16-year-old we'll call Kathy, worked hard to gain Shauna's trust, and within months, a deep friendship was born. Shauna spent weeks lobbying her mother for permission to spend the night at Kathy's house.
And Shauna's just begging me, so I finally give in.
Her dad took us to this house and said he'd be right back, and he left us there, and I asked for some water because I was thirsty, and I drank the water and I blacked out.
When Shauna woke up, she felt groggy and couldn't move.
My legs were being held down, and the guy that was raping me was holding my hands back. Like, I kept screaming, "Stop, please don't do this, leave me alone." But I was so weak I couldn't fight him off. Like, I was still really out of it, and I blacked out a few times, and I kept coming back to, and I was still being raped every time I woke up.
At home, her mother started to worry.
My cell phone rang, and all I heard was, "Mommy, help me," and the phone went dead. And I freaked.
After receiving a frantic phone call from her daughter, Shauna's mother, Lisa, called police. She says they told her not to worry and tried to convince her Shauna had run away.
And he's like, "Oh, well, there's nothing I can do, teenagers." And I was like, "No, you don't understand. I know my children. Something's wrong."
Not every child that's designated as a runaway is a runaway child. My daughter Polly, who was kidnapped by a vicious, brutal, life-term criminal, was thought to have run away for a long period of time.
Shauna endured 3 days of being drugged, raped, and tortured. And according to rescuers,
Shauna had been sold on the internet for $300,000.
in a twist of fate, the volunteer search party looking for the 16-year-old rescued her when her captors stopped for gas while trying to flee the state.
Her eyes were black and blue, her mouth was bloody, her nose was bloody, her throat had handprints all over it.
In the 2 years since the abduction, no one has ever been arrested or prosecuted for the kidnapping, gang rape, and torture of Shauna Newell. Today, under the watchful guard of her family, Shauna warns other girls about how easy it is to be kidnapped and trafficked. Her mission? To save other girls from a similar fate.
To this day, I'm still scared to go out. Like, I went to the beach a few weeks ago, and I saw the dude who raped me, and he just looked at me like, "Hey, you ruined my whole life. You have scarred me for the rest of my life, and you're just sitting there going on with your life like nothing is wrong."
Okay, so what jumped out at you with that story? Anything surprise you? Who recruited her? It was her best friend, right? So the father of her friend was not her father. That was the trafficker, right? So he he recruited a young girl to go make a friend, and they're very, very patient. You notice it was over a period of months. It wasn't right away. Cultivated that relationship, and then at that particular moment when the trust was there, right, she went over to the house. And so the bait was that friendship, right, and the fact that it's much easier to trust another kid than trusting an adult, right? We've all been taught about stranger danger, but then what if that danger is somebody who you trust, who is somebody who's your age? And so what we are seeing that more and more is that the traffickers are hiring kids to recruit other kids. So was she what you would think of as a high-risk victim? No, absolutely not. She wasn't on the street. She came from a good household, a good background, right? So the point of that is that it can happen to anybody. Next slide, please. So what Homeland Security, have you heard of Homeland Security? They head up the North Texas Trafficking Task Force. They tell us that about 20% of the victims are boys in the U.S. and about 80% are girls. We don't have a lot of information on the boys because it's kept really underground, pretty secret. But what you saw from that story is it can happen to anybody, no matter what the background is, race, religion, socioeconomic. So let me tell you a story about one of the Plano girls. And this was about 1.5 to 2 years ago. She was in middle school, so it was right out of one of the middle schools in our town of Plano. And she had a boyfriend who went to one of the high schools. And it was a similar situation, only their relationship developed over a period of months. He said one day to her, "Hey, why don't we try a drug?" Right? I don't remember which drug it was, but we'll talk more about the drugs later. So he got her to, try something once, and then again. And then at a certain opportunity, he turned her over to the trafficker, and she was being trafficked out by the Dallas Zoo. And so let me tell you, because I love when I get to talk to churches, because I can tell you about the God miracle stories that we see God's hand in these rescues all the time. So one of our street outreach volunteers, it was the first time we had ever done a street outreach down in Dallas, and one of our male volunteers met this girl and gave her a teen Bible. And that spurred in her, she decided to run away from her trafficker and ran back home. And because there were truancy charges on this girl, they put her in the Plano Emergency Children's Shelter. And it just so happened that our same volunteer who had been on the street outreach also volunteered for the children's shelter. So what are the chances that the night she was in the shelter, our same volunteer happened to be volunteering in the emergency shelter? So she got there, she saw him, she said, "You're the guy who gave me the Bible. Let me tell you my story." And so that was really miraculous that she was able to be rescued and saved. The other thing that came out of that is she saved her friend. There was another young girl also in middle school who was being trafficked in the same area, and she was about to be sold to Taiwan. Now, do you think that if you all have seen Taken, right? She did not have Liam Neeson as her dad. If she had been sold to Taiwan, do you think anybody would have ever heard from her again? Right? No. Okay, next slide. So let's talk about some of the traps. So some of the traps, definitely computers. At any given time, 50,000 predators are on the internet looking for victims. And so traffickers are on there looking. People who are interested in buying kids are out there looking. So where do they hang out? How many of you, tell me what social media, how many use Instagram? Raise your hand. Yeah. How many have Facebook accounts? How many have Twitter? Twitter. Is anybody doing Moco Space or Kick? Yeah. Oh, Kick is really nasty, so like you guys gotta really watch it with the Kick. Xbox, we have any Xbox players in here? Just a few gamers in here. And Snapchat. We have to have Snapchatters. I know they're in here, yes. Okay, so let me tell you a few stories about how the traffickers are using social media to trap kids. So we've had a couple of victims that their traffickers set up fake Facebook profiles. So one of them was a guy. One of the victims was a guy out of Houston, 15-year-old boy, met a friend on Facebook. The friend was an older man, but he looked really young. He looked like he was in college. So they became friends, they started hanging out. Over a period, the mom, he wasn't kidnapped or anything, he was still going home at night. The mom knew this guy, the mom liked the guy, and at some point he started selling the boy out of his massage business. And then what happened was, do you remember when the Olympics were in London? Yeah. So he was going to take the boy to London to sell him during the Olympics. Anytime there's a big sport event, there's a lot of sex trafficking, especially of kids. So the kid thought he was going to London to see the sights, right? He didn't know he was going to be sold. And so the mom okayed the trip. Now there was airline personnel who thought it was pretty strange that the kid was traveling with an adult male who was not his relative. And they flagged it, and they were able to catch him before he sold him at the Olympics. So that was pretty major. We've had 2 of our girl victims met their perpetrator on Moco Space because it was somebody who was pretending to be, friend of a friend. So you just think how easy it is we can Google image, right? How easy it is to set up fake profiles. The Snapchat, so how many of you think that Snapchat goes away? In how many seconds? How many seconds? 10 seconds? 6 seconds? So do you think it really ever goes away? No. So what's happening is all these kids are like, oh, I can take these pictures and I can send the pictures, but they'll go away after a few seconds. So no big deal if I take hot pics and put them out there, right? So what these traffickers started doing is taking screenshots and then blackmailing the kids into doing what they wanted in exchange for not releasing those pictures to the parents' work, right? Next slide, please. Do you all recognize any of these images? Who are they? So we don't know who they are either. We just Googled teenager, and these are some of the pictures that came up. So you just think about how easy it is to completely set up a fake profile. I have another story for you. This one was a Fort Worth story. 14-year-old girl met a friend on Facebook. They weren't at the same school, but at the next school over. And she met another 14-year-old girl. Guess what? They had all the same interests. They started talking on Facebook. And after a few months, they decided they were going to meet at the mall, right? And that the one girl's mom was going to treat them at the food court. So the day arrives, they show up at the mall. She shows up at the mall. She said, wait for me outside. My mom and I will pull up. So when the car pulled up, do you think there was a 14-year-old girl inside who was her friend? No, it was a guy, grabbed her, abducted her, sold her to 100 men in 1 month. So they're using the places that you guys hang out, and they are cultivating these relationships. Next slide. All right, so how can they find you? So you all know, how many know do you guys have your phones with you? Oh, right, of course you do. Pull out your smartphones for a second. Go into your settings into your privacy, location settings and privacy. Tell me what you see once you get into there. Yeah, location services, exactly, privacy location services, and you should see a list of all your apps. Does anybody see ons by their apps? Raise your hand if you see ons. Okay, so if you do not drive, you're going to turn off all of the apps. If you do drive, you can turn off all of the apps except your maps, because you need that to drive, right? So here's what the traffickers are doing. They are tracking kids through their GPS devices. So think about it. You're on Twitter. Twitter is public, right? You have people that follow you on your Twitter feeds. So here's what happens. You post a pic, it goes up on your Twitter account, and just by right-clicking on that image, anybody can find out the GPS coordinates, the exact location where you were when you tweeted, right? So what these traffickers start to do is they start to mine through the Twitter feeds, mine through the Instagram, mine through the Facebook. They can hack in and start to look and see, okay, can I pick on you? Tell me your name. Sam, okay. So let's say they're looking at Sam's postings. They start to see where she hangs out. Maybe she goes to Starbucks in the morning, right? And then maybe they start going to Starbucks because when they know she's going to be there, right? And it's another kid. It's not, somebody who you think might be a creep, right? It's another kid. So they begin, maybe she hangs out at a particular park after school. So they begin to see a pattern, and then they begin to show up at these places, right? So what you want to do is you want to protect yourself against somebody hacking in to your systems, and also you don't want to have your information public. You want to have that private, because that is, by having that public, that's like saying, hey, I'm a target, come and get me, right? Okay. All right, so we talked about the trap of social media and the trap of the internet. So the third trap is porn. So this is a story, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the story, but it's a true story of a 13-year-old boy who got addicted to porn and is now a registered sex offender. The FBI flagged his computer and showed up one day, and he was arrested for possession of child pornography. So the crazy thing is, he was over at a friend's house sleeping over. His friend said, hey, look at these weird images. He looked at them and he thought it was gross, and but it gave him a funny feeling, and then he started to look at it more and more. So a couple things that I wanted to say about porn, and that is the studies show now that it chemically, by looking at those images, it chemically changes the brain much in the same way that a narcotic drug does. So if you think about how with a drug, you start to need more and more and to get that same fix, right? So same thing with porn. You need more and more, then you need more extreme forms of porn, and then at some point that's not enough and you might need a real live person. So the traffickers are using porn to ensure we have demand, meaning if you guys have taken economics yet, right, you have supply and demand. So if we didn't have people that wanted to have sex with kids, we wouldn't have this problem. And so the people that are buying the kids are people, in many cases, they are porn addicts. So another study came out that showed that 50% of Christian men in this country are addicted to porn. 20% of Christian women are addicted to porn. So that's pretty frightening. Dallas alone, it was a $99 million illicit sex industry just in Dallas. So we are in a porn-addicted culture. Now let me bring it back to this kid for a minute. So he is now a registered sex offender, even though he was a minor, right, for having those images on his computer. So how easy do you think it's going to be for him to get a job? Do you think anybody's going to hire a registered sex offender? No. Do you think he's going to have an easy time getting into college? Probably not, right? So, you know, not just the addiction, this is going to affect him for the rest of his life, right? Okay, next slide. All right, so we talked about online. We talked about porn. So they are all, traffickers are also hanging out in the real world wherever you all hang out. So I gave you an example of Plano Middle School. They're recruiting in our schools. The traffickers are hiring other kids to recruit. They're hanging out in the malls. So we had an instance, well, actually quite a few instances at malls. So how many of you, do you go to Stonebriar? Right? How many go to Stonebriar? So where are the bathrooms located at Stonebriar? In that really long hallway, right? Does anybody else get the creeps when they have to walk down that really long hallway? What else are usually by the bathrooms? Emergency exit doors, right? So the traffickers sometimes will hang out by the bathrooms and grab kids. So I say, you know, my son who is 16, he's still like, you better not go to the bathroom by yourself, and don't let your girlfriend go to the bathroom by herself, because this is where they're hanging out. So the other thing, sometimes they're not just grabbing, right? They're not just abducting the kids, but they're much smoother. So they'll go up to the kids, go in the food court or in the stores that they hang out at. So tell me what stores you hang out at. Say it louder. GameStop. Yeah, that's a good one. GameStop. Do you hang out like Abercrombie, American Eagle? No? Foot Locker, yeah. So they're hanging out at the stores where you guys hang out, again, in the hopes to cultivate these relationships. So what if they said, you know, hey, you know, do you want to be in my modeling video, or do you want to be in my rap video? So those are some of the lines, right? So they're hanging out, hoping to make connections wherever you guys are hanging out. Next slide. All right. So tell me this was your comic relief, because I know it's pretty doom and gloom. Who is the dude on the left? Snoop Dogg, right? So, who I know he's now Snoop Lion, but then somebody just told me he went back to Snoop Dogg. I don't know. So, Snoop Dogg, if you didn't know, is actually a confessed pimp. He says he doesn't do anymore, but he did. He used to be a pimp. And in this image, they actually did a movie of an old TV show called Starsky and Hutch. And the character that Snoop Dogg plays is Huggy Bear, the lovable pimp. So do we think this is what pimps look like? No. Why not? I'm kind of digging the coat, man. I think it's pretty cool. Why don't pimps look like that? Yeah, exactly. What did you say? Yeah. So they don't want to draw attention to themselves. So they're not going to stand out. They're going to blend in and look like everybody else, right? So do you see the guy in the uniform there? 14-year-old girl. Let me tell you about him. He had done 2 tours in the Middle East, one in Iraq, one in Afghanistan. He was back. He was driving around a Fort Worth mall. It was raining. There was a 14-year-old girl who was crying and walking in the parking lot. He stopped, said, let me, take you somewhere to get dry. I'll take you to a coffee shop or home, wherever you want to go. She got in the car. Why do you think she got in the car? Why? Yeah. So she trusted him because he was in uniform, right? So he ended up abducting her. He stabbed her. He got her hooked to meth, right? And lest we think that pimps are only guys, we are now seeing more and more female traffickers. So the lady in the nice orange jumpsuit there is from Minnesota. She is a cheerleading captain and 16 years old and was pimping out her cheerleaders on her team. She was arrested. The boy in the news article below the military guy, this was a 16-year-old boy from Irving, one of the high schools in Irving, arrested for trafficking one of his classmates. And the guy next to him, right there, he is this was also a Collin County case. He was trafficking a 14-year-old from Allen, and he sold her in 1 month. He sold her in 6 different states to over 100 men. He got 20 years. That was another, God, we were very happy about that. He got a 20-year conviction. And then the one on the bottom right, it was a mom and a grandmom, and they were trafficking out their child in exchange for drugs. And then we do have cartels and gangs. So you don't have to live by the border. The Mexican cartel, the Salvadorian gangs are now in all major cities, and they are putting aside their feuds because they realize that they can make so much money selling kids. So they're selling drugs, selling kids. So we actually have one little girl in our safe house right now, and her mother sold her to the Mexican cartel when she was 11 years old in exchange for a brand new pickup truck. Next slide. All right. So what's some of the bait? So we talked about the drugs. So if you think about drugs, and we have kind of the big 3. The most addictive drugs out there are crack cocaine, heroin, meth. Good. So those drugs, we know that you can do them once and get addicted, right? So you think about it, the traffickers know this. They will get their recruiters, and they also use drugs, both the recruiters and the traffickers, and they will start by giving the kids drugs for free. They're not charging them. And then at some point when they're addicted, all of a sudden, they can't pay for it. They have to exchange sex for drugs. So if I said to you, when we were talking about trafficking before, that it was anything exchange of any sex act for anything of value, if I give you the example of a 16-year-old boy and he gives a girl drugs and she agrees to have sex with him for those drugs, how many of you think that's sex trafficking under the law? Raise your hand. How can that be sex trafficking? She agreed. She agreed to have sex. He didn't force her. So I heard up here she agreed under false circumstances. So when a minor is involved, there is no such thing as consent. So even though she thinks she consented, and she's thinking she's getting something and he's getting something, and even though he's a minor, it is still considered sex trafficking. Let me give you another scenario. What if someone asked a 10-year-old to strip in exchange for a McDonald's cheeseburger? How many of you think that is sex trafficking under the law? Raise your hand. But it's just a cheeseburger. How could that be sex trafficking? It's only not worth 99 cents. Yeah, because it doesn't matter. Money does not need to exchange hands, right? And stripping under the law is considered a sex act. So even though it's only a 99-cent worth, it was a sex act exchanged for something of value. All right, so the other bait we see. So many times we see that the kids really love their pimp. They think that their pimp is their boyfriend or their girlfriend. The pimp has made promises, compliments, love, promising place to stay, food, jobs, right? They think they have a future. So they are brainwashing and manipulating the kids into believing that lie. Okay. Next slide. All right. So here are some of the myths surrounding those false promises that the pimp is giving. So they may say to the kid, you know, you're going to make all this money. And then you'll have a great life. You're going to be able to afford really nice clothes, designer clothes. Maybe your thing is cars. So maybe you get a brand new convertible Mustang, which, by the way, one of the boys in Collin County Juvenile Detention got after finding a girlfriend for a trafficker. Maybe they're promised love. Maybe they're promised, freedom. So in reality, the pimp makes all the money. The kids are not getting any of that money. Instead, they get a life filled with abuse, drug addiction, no medical care, and all of their freedom is taken away from them. That pimp is controlling every aspect of their life. Next slide. All right, so we're going to regroup for a minute. I'm going to give you some what-ifs. So we are taught to be good Samaritans, to help somebody else in need. So, can I pick on you? So let's say I came up to you and I'm out on the street and I said, tell me your name. Justin. I said, oh my gosh, I am in trouble. My car broke down. I don't have a phone. Can I please borrow your phone and call for help? Look at me. Do I look scary? What would you say, Justin? Would you let me use your phone? No. Oh, good answer. How many of you would let me use your phone? Right? Because I don't look particularly threatening. So, of course, our first instance is that we would want to help somebody who's in trouble. And why don't you think we should let a stranger use our phone? What could happen? Yeah, so stolen, what else? Yes, so exactly. So all they have to do is put in their phone number into your phone, into your phone, and then they have access to your information, all your personal information. They can hack in, they can access all your contacts. There are apps that can do that. So and then they might start texting you, right? So what could you do to still be a good Samaritan but keep yourself safe? Yeah. Yeah, well, we don't have payphones anymore, but yes, you could say you're out of battery. What else? You could say you don't have a phone. What else?
Just not bring your phone in the first place.
Well, you could not bring your phone in the first place, yeah? So one of the, you could call for them, right? You could say, I'd be happy to call 911 for you, or I could be happy to make a call for you. So that's one thing you could do. But also, you could also do these other things as well. So let me give you another scenario. You have a friend who's in trouble. Things are really bad at home. And your friend is talking to you, and your friend is saying, you know, I have to get out of the house. Things are so bad at home. I cannot stay there another minute. I'm going to run away. It's got to be better running away than staying at home. So what would you say to your friend? What are some other options? Yes. Yes, you could stay at my house. Excellent. So why would you not want to say, hey, that's a great idea, run away, things are bad? Because we realize somebody's running away, they are running away from something or someone, right? Most likely there is some abuse going on in that household. So you want to help your friend. What was that statistic I told you at the beginning? 1 in 3 kids, right, gets approached by a trafficker within how many hours? 48 hours, right? So you want to do what you can to help that friend not be out on the street where they are vulnerable. Okay, so why do you think you wouldn't want to tweet that you hate yourself, you hate your life, you want to die, you hate your parents. Yes, ma'am. So what the answer was that leaves a trail. So if you do run away, then it seems like you don't make a good, you're not reliable, right? They won't believe that you were taken. So remember I talked about that the traffickers are hanging out on social media and hanging out online? So let's say I'm a trafficker. I'll pick on Justin again. Justin has posted that, he hates his life. I'm a trafficker, I see that post. What does that say? What does that tell me? Yes? Yeah, so he's a potential target then, right? It's communicating that someone is unhappy, they're vulnerable, right? And I'm gonna go at, those are the kids that a trafficker is gonna go after, somebody who's vulnerable. So why wouldn't you want to send a sexy pic of yourself to your boyfriend or girlfriend? What can happen to that picture? Yeah. Yes, they can spread it around, and we're going to see an example of that. Yep. That was he stole your idea. Well, that was a good idea. Okay, next slide, please. This should be the video, I think. Yeah. Have you seen this already? Okay, it's funny, but sad, too. Should he show his friends? Do you think he does? Yes. Too late.
I heard it was too late. Check this out. Hold up.
Whoa! Oh man! Yo, send that to me real quick. I'm not gonna. Come on, send that to me.
Do you think he does? Yes.
Look at that power. Check that out, boys. I had to send this to Mark.
Okay, who's that? Little brother. He's scarred. Who's that? Mom. Oh, she's not happy. And then who's that? Not the dad. Who is it? Yep. It's the predator. Yep. All right. So, how many of you know somebody that's happened to at your school? Raise your hand. I mean, it's everywhere. Every school, it's happening everywhere. So the girl that happened to, what is her life like now at school after something like that? She doesn't want to go to school. I mean, we are actually seeing now kids that have committed suicide after something like that goes around school because it's just so humiliating and so shameful, right? So let me ask you. Let's say, who can I pick on? Okay, tell me your name. Ken? Kane. Cool name. That's like a rock star name. All right. So Kane. So let's say Kane, gets a hot pic from his girlfriend, right? Woo. He didn't ask for it though, it just appeared. It just appeared. He would never ever do anything like that. So he just gets this on his phone, right? So let me, this is serious, y'all. So let me say, so if you happen to get pictures, I mean, you saw up here, some people, sent them, and then it just went viral and everybody got it, right? So a lot of the people that got it did not ask for it. It just appeared. So he gets a picture, he did not ask for that picture, but that picture is on his phone and it shows nudity of a minor. What do you think can happen to Cain? Yep, he gets arrested for possession of child pornography, and he is all of a sudden a registered sex offender. So hear me on this, folks. You do not have to take the picture, you do not have to distribute the picture. The picture can magically appear in your inbox, and you are in possession of child porn. You remember the guy we looked at earlier, the 13-year-old boy, and we talked about what are his prospects for college and a job as a registered sex offender? So what should you all do if you get pictures like that, which I would venture to guess almost everybody in here has seen a picture like that, by accident, of course, on their phone. Yeah. Yeah, excellent. You delete it. So people say, well, if you could still see the history, if you have deleted it right away, law enforcement is not going to prosecute you, So yes, you absolutely delete it. Some schools, I think all the Plano schools also have anonymous tip boxes, which means you could report that you received that anonymously, so nobody would know that you were the one who was reporting it, right? So that is also an option. Okay. All right. Here's what I wanted to say about this. Ultimately, the purpose of this presentation is to empower you to make a difference in your community. You may be the only one who is in a unique position to help a friend, somebody at school who's in trouble, right? Because we all know that kids talk to other kids before grown-ups. So you may see a friend or somebody that you know at school who has a brand new tat, and that's a conversation starter. Where'd you get that? Tell me the story behind that. Because what's the legal age for tats in Texas? Yep. So either the parents agreed. My son's a wrestler, so we see lots of tats out on the wrestling mats. The other thing is that you may just notice a change in behavior from a friend of yours. Somebody who's normally outgoing becomes really withdrawn. Somebody who's normally really withdrawn is overcompensating and becomes very extroverted. So you may, one red flag, not necessarily a sign of trafficking, but you just start to see some major changes. One thing that we really see is the big red flag is that older friend who starts to be very controlling, doesn't want your friend to hang out with their friends anymore, starts isolating them away from their friends and family, right? The older controlling friend. Next, please. All right, so we're gonna finish up here. We asked some pimps, what do you look for in potential victims? So here's the common denominator, is kids that have low self-esteem and low self-worth. And that's who they're gonna target, kids with a lot of unsupervised time. So, and what I will say is that in teenage years, it is very normal at some point in your teen life to experience periods of depression, low self-esteem, and low self-worth. This is why that target age, right, is so crucial. So if you are exhibiting positive self-esteem, positive self-worth, you are confident, and you are careful, it diminishes your opportunity to be a victim. Okay. Next slide. How do you get your targets, your victims to trust you? I build their self-esteem through compliments. I act as if we're dating. I say I love you. I give them gifts, alcohol, drugs to get them hooked on our relationship. Next. Do you love the kids who work for you? No, no, no. They are a dollar sign, a product, just merchandise. Did you all see the slide with the tattoo with the girl with the barcode on the back of her neck? What does a barcode symbolize? Something to be bought or sold, right? A product. That's what the kids are to these traffickers. And next. Is it true you use violence to control your victims? Absolutely. Sometimes I tell the kids that I will hurt their families if they tell anyone or try and stop. I hit them and they can see the threat is serious. So I was talking to one group of boys recently who were in the foster care system and they were getting ready to age out. And one guy said to me, he said, I take martial arts. There is no way that a trafficker could ever take me. And I said, well, maybe the threat won't be against you. Maybe the threat is, this is how sick these traffickers are. They'll say, you know what? Your little sister, I'm going to pour battery acid in her eyes unless you do what I want you to do for me, right? I'm going to wipe out your entire family unless you do what I want you to do for me. So this is how they get them, through that brainwashing and threats and coercion. Okay. So ending up, we've talked about the different traps, we've talked about the bait, we've talked about the lures. I know that a lot of it is pretty disturbing and scary stuff, and I don't want you all to leave and be completely freaked out. Maybe some of the parents that are in here are completely freaked out. But the point of this is to educate you, so not only can you protect yourselves, but so you can go out and be a light in the world to help others that are in trouble. Because it's going to take all of us to put an end to sex trafficking of kids. And you guys, even though you're teens, you all can make a difference in the world. Thank you.